Hi, I'm Melissa Ray of Thrive Beauty Services. I provide transformational beauty services in salon, at home, on site, and at your convenience. I'm proud to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
My name is Greg Relow. I'm a local attorney and mediator. I am pleased to be associated with Get Conscious Now. I find the show inspiring. I hope you enjoy the show. Please contact me for help on all your legal matters. I look forward to it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Get Conscious Now. This is Patricia Diorio and I'm really delighted that you're tuning in today. And I'd also like to welcome our wonderful studio audience. Thanks for being here today. It makes such a difference to have you in our space. So we have a wonderful show planned for you today, but unfortunately my dear Stu Zimmerman, co-host, is unable to be with us because he had a scheduling conflict. But fortunately, as Spirit would have it, I found the perfect co-host. And here he is. Meet Burke Franklin. Burke is a businessman, an entrepreneur, and the CEO of businesspowertools.com, best known for, I'm going to take a look at this for a second, forgive me, BizPlan business software. He is also the author of a wonderful book on business and consciousness called Business Black Belt. Here's a shot of it here. And given that we're going to be talking about business today, as I said, Burke is the perfect host.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
I am excited to be here. And what I love about consciousness in business, because this is the part where we learn about where we're coming from in business. So when we're making sales or managing people, who am I being in that moment? And who better than McCarthy to talk to us about that? So I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say. And so also, just so you know, you can find us on Facebook under Get Conscious Now, on YouTube, just youtube.com/GetConsciousNow. And the system in there to find the past shows is really easy to use, so you can find us there. And also on our website at Get Conscious Now. So welcome to the show.
Good. So today's episode is about creating success in business and in our lives by implementing spiritual principles within the context of gratitude. I just love that within the context of gratitude. And our guest today, as Burke mentioned, is May McCarthy. And May is the CEO of Bizults, which is a very innovative company that has earned its credentials. And I just want to share a few of them with you. Since 1982, May has founded and grown 7 successful companies as large as $100 million in annual revenue. She is the best-selling author of The Path to Wealth, this book right here that I'm going to hold up. And her newest book is The Gratitude Formula, which just recently came out. And I actually downloaded the book last Wednesday night and listened to it in its entirety. And it's really a wonderful read, or listen, depending on what you're doing. She is an inspirational speaker, a philanthropist, and an angel investor. Serving on many boards, business, academia, and the arts. She attributes her success to implementing spiritual principles into her ventures, and it's her passion to pass her knowledge on to others. Lucky us. Welcome, May McCarthy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Burke. I'm glad you're here.
Good to meet you.
Wonderful. So this may seem like a trite question, but I always find it very interesting to see how people's upbringing, how their upbringing influenced and inspired them to be doing the work that you're doing. And I know that you were raised in Hawaii, and were there 9 children?
10.
10 children.
Yes.
So you had quite an upbringing.
I did.
And share a little bit about how your upbringing contributed to the work that you're doing today, would you?
I will. My father was a surgeon, but he was also an entrepreneur. And one of the things that he and my mother told all 10 of us children is that if we wanted extra money, things to buy, toys or treats or snacks or anything like that, what we had to do was figure out a fair exchange of value. We had to identify what somebody needed, what problem needed to be solved, or a convenience that they needed to have, and we had to come up with a solution so that we could facilitate a fair exchange of value. And I remember telling my mother when I was about 6 years old that I saw a problem and that perhaps I could facilitate a fair exchange of value. She said, well, what problem? I said, well, out on our beach in front of our house, there are people that look very thirsty, and there are no public facilities where we live. And I think that I could help them with their thirst. So my mom helped me start my first concession business, and it was really successful. What I learned a little bit later after starting it and growing it was that I had forgotten to account for inventory shrinkage, because my brothers would literally eat my profits when they helped themselves to the treats. But that idea of a fair exchange of value has stuck with me. And I started several more companies while I was a kid, through high school, and then started my first of 7 companies as an adult the sophomore year of college. Yeah, so
Wow.
that idea of fair exchange of value is still very, very important to me, and has been ingrained in all of my businesses.
Well, it's not surprising that you were raised by entrepreneurial parents, really, and that made that definitely influenced the direction that you took in life.
Yeah, and the other example that they gave was this idea of giving. If we gave first, then we would receive even more abundantly.
Right.
And my dad, being a surgeon in a very, very small town called Kailua in Hawaii, and it was a very small town. It was 1950s, late 50s, early 60s. And every year at Christmas time, he'd say, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that we got. We got so much stuff from people, fresh food and fruit and clothing and all sorts of stuff. And I asked him, well, why are people giving us so many gifts? And he said, well, I have patients that can pay for what I provide, a fair exchange of value, but I also have other patients that need health care, and they don't have the type of money that would facilitate a fair exchange of value, but I would look in their eyes and tell them repeatedly, we're going to get you well, and someday you're going to think of something that is a fair exchange of value. And every year my dad would comment that we always received more than he gave out. And that also stuck with me, and I know has been part of the main reason for the success that I've had in business.
That's beautiful. Thank you. That's great.
You know, I was thinking about you've started 7 businesses,
Yeah.
and they've all been successful. And I know most people don't experience that. They hear that their businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years, which is, I find, painful. But what I wonder, rather than just the part about what makes the businesses successful, you needed to choose which business you were going to go into then to make successful. What is your thought process on choosing a business to start that would ultimately that you'd think would become successful?
Well, first of all, I have to feel passionate about what problem we're solving. Now, when I was going to college, the problem we were solving is that my business partner, who was my sister, didn't want to be away from her child on the weekends as a realtor. What she wanted was a business that allowed her to work during the evenings of the week so she could have weekends free. So, and I needed a job that I could go to school during the day and have a job during the evening. So the problem we were solving was a scheduling issue, and it was a convenience that we were creating for our customers because they could buy in untraditional ways. We came to them to sell things. So that still was solving a problem.
Yeah.
But all of the other businesses that I had, I was very passionate, very, very passionate about the problem we were solving, whether it was saving people money or in my last 2 businesses with software and equipment. Our purpose, the problem we were solving was that people were dying in hospitals because they were getting the wrong medications. And we wanted to change that because my mother had had a medication error. And so we thought, if you can scan a barcode at a grocery store and know how many boxes of Kellogg's cereal or General Mills cereal you have in inventory, why can't we use barcodes on medications to validate it's the right drug for the right patient? We wanted to save lives. That was the problem. And so that's the answer to your question is I have to feel very passionate about what problem we're solving.
Making a difference, not just making a profit.
Yeah, and every company's got to have a purpose, a why that they exist, which is much different than what the company does.
Did you analyze the businesses before you started them? How did you do that? What did you do there?
So in addition to this wonderful emotion that goes along into
You're right.
making a decision, it actually has to follow the litmus test of a good quality business. So a business plan needed to be done. We had to look and see what the competition looked like, all the traditional things that you would look at in creating a business plan and determining whether or not this can be a sustainable business. And your software actually helps people through that process.
That's true, yeah.
Of creating a business plan. And audience and the viewers, I think that you should check out his software if you're thinking about starting a business.
See, we're the perfect co-host
Thank you.
for today. Yeah.
It's called Biz Plan Builder.
There you
Biz
go.
Plan Builder.
Yeah, so
Okay.
all of that, all those boxes have to be checked. I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be a viable business. And I've seen so many people fail and lose all of their retirement and savings by starting a business because they think it's a great idea. But if they just would have done the work, they would have realized they needed to restructure the model to enable them to make money. And now I have clients all over the world who I work with personally, and we talk about those business things and really making sure that before they spend any money, we plan the business out on paper first. Make your mistakes on paper.
Buckminster Fuller said, the mistake in the plan can be corrected with an eraser. The mistake in the business requires a checkbook.
I love
Yeah.
that. I
That's
love
great.
that.
So you credit your business success with the implementation of your spiritual principles in your work, which I love. And I particularly love this concept of the CSO. So tell our audience about the CSO and how you weave that being into your work.
Sure. So I've always been raised with a sense of faith that there's something that is greater than me that has orchestrated this divine universe, and that there were certain universal laws that I could use as part of a success tool. You know, I guess if we were going to phrase it, it'd probably be new thought, you know, where you use your words, thoughts, and emotions as a tool for manifesting the things that are important to you. But if you use those tools along with this idea of a fair exchange of value and living the company purpose while taking care of all of the stakeholders, and that's also, I believe, a spiritual tool. You're giving out success to all of your stakeholders, and consequently, you'll be successful in return. So I had been using that really kind of unconsciously. It just is who I am in many of my businesses, and it worked really well. And I thought, you know, what I'd really like to do is have my employees understand how they could use this for their success. So what would I call that? And I thought, well, you know, we have an ultimate advisor. We have this intelligence that's available to us through intuition, through strong thoughts, ideas, gut instincts, sometimes messages through other people that resonate with us. We all have it. And then I started to do a little bit of investigation and found out that Bill Gates says that he often relies on intuition, and Oprah Winfrey, who I guess is relatively your neighbor,
Right.
she
literally.
said that she's listened to that still small voice of intuition her whole life, and the only time she's made mistakes is when she didn't listen. Everyone has had an experience with intuition. So I thought, well, what I'd like is to bring this divine intelligence, the source of intuition, into my business as an ultimate advisor. But I needed to give it a title, because the people in my companies that I surround myself with, whose advice I value, include my chief financial officer, my chief operations officer, my chief information officer, people in my C-suite who are subject matter experts. And I thought, well, this divine intelligence knows everything about everything, so why don't I bring it into the business? I'll give it a title, and I call it the Chief Spiritual Officer, or CSO for short. And what I
That's
did
great.
was I put it on the top of my organizational chart. And when my employees asked me about that, I said, look, this is a symbol. This is a symbol of why we're going to be a miracle-making company. This is why we're going to have innovative thoughts when there are really interesting problems that we have to solve, when we're going to have peace in the midst of a customer yelling at us because they're dissatisfied. It's the reason that we're going to succeed and become market share leader in our space in spite of competing with 3 Fortune 20 companies. This is the reason why. All we have to do is be grateful for the outcome that we want in any situation. If you have an upset customer, I'm so grateful that we now are serving our customers in a meaningful and valuable way, and they are happy and at peace. Focus on the outcome that you want. If you have a problem, focus on the successful outcome with gratitude and see what happens. Well, it was no surprise to me that they all reported that, in fact, things that didn't make any rational sense would come up to facilitate exactly what they were putting their attention on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Great.
we love the CSO.
CSO, it's great.
CSO.
It was fun when a $5.5 billion company out of San Diego bought us, and they looked at our org chart and they said, "Who's the CSO?"
Did you tell them?
Oh yeah.
Of course. Well, how did they respond to that?
They smiled and continued with the transaction.
Continue with the transaction. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you outline in your book, what is it, 7 different spiritual practices to financial abundance,
A daily practice.
which I'm
yeah.
sure most people want to hear as soon as possible. Could you give us the Cliff Notes version of some of that?
I can. So what I ask people to do is to wake up about 25 to 30 minutes before they normally get ready for their day. So if you need to set an alarm, please know you're only going to have to listen to that alarm for about 4 mornings, because after that you're going to start waking up before the alarm. It's just such a fun practice. In that practice, you're going to find a place in your home that's not your bed and have a goal planning meeting with an ultimate advisor. I happen to name mine the CSO, but you can name yours anything you want. Doesn't matter. And if it's consistent with whatever your spiritual tradition is, that's fine. But there's some advice that's beyond your rational mind that's available to you as part of this universe, this all-knowing power of the universe. You're going to meet every single morning with that divine intelligence. In the meeting, you're going to need a spiral notebook or a journal, an uplifting book to read, and a writing instrument, a pen or a pencil. Step 1, the first 4 steps happen in that 25 to 30 minutes. Step 1 is to read something for 5 minutes that's inspirational and uplifting. I find that short stories about ordinary people having extraordinary experiences because of Spirit's influence are great for that. And I list a whole bunch of books that people can choose at the end of my books. The second step is to write out a gratitude letter. I write out, "Dear CSO, thank you for all these things that I have. And thank you for all these things I want." But word what you want as though you already have it. So instead of saying, "I want to lose 10 pounds," you would say, "I'm so grateful that I am now physically fit, trim, toned, energetic, in a healthy, pain-free body that easily moves through life." Or instead of saying, "I want to be debt-free," you would say, "I'm so grateful that I'm financially free with a minimum or more of X number of dollars for all my living, giving, and entertainment expenses." Okay? All right, so word it as though it's already complete with gratitude. The third step is to read what you wrote out loud. As you hear yourself say things out loud, it anchors it more fully within you, and it will start to help you pay attention to possibilities that are out there that are in alignment with what you've put voice to. And then finally, the fourth step is to take about 5 minutes and pick one of your goals, just one. And sit there quietly with your eyes closed and see if you can see the movie of yourself in the completed goal. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? How do you feel? As much imagery as you can make in that movie for up to 5 minutes. And then you're done. Go start your day. And throughout the day, you're going to get strong thoughts or ideas, or maybe somebody says something to you that resonates with you. These are all intuitive leads, all messages from that divine intelligence that are guiding you to take steps to achieve your goals. At the end of the day, what you want to do is use a forgiveness or a giving forth mantra. You read it right before you go to sleep, and this will take anything within you that's not serving you. Unforgiveness, pain, anger, jealousy, anything that's not serving you, and it will put it over here on the side so that you now have room to receive the things that you want. Because if you're filled up, there's no room to receive the good things that you want.
You don't include any kind of meditation, like just a quiet going within and connecting with the divine in those steps.
No, but I think meditation is a brilliant spiritual tool. I do. But this is goal attainment strategies combined with, an idea of God, let's say, and gratitude. It's the force of 3 G's.
God,
Gratitude,
good,
and goals.
So in your second book, in the first book you have 7 spiritual steps to financial abundance, the path to wealth, and then the gratitude formula, a 7-step success system to create a life that you love. Are these the same steps
Nope.
that in the first book? They're different.
In the gratitude formula, the 7-step daily practice is referred to as the daily practice. That's step 1.
So the
in the
entire
gratitude
daily
formula.
practice is
It's
step
1.
Okay, good.
And then there are more steps. The reason I wrote the gratitude formula is I found that people that were using the path to wealth were able to easily manifest the things that they believed that they could achieve. But those goals that were bigger than anything they've experienced before or different than anything they've experienced before, they were feeling like frauds. And so they'd give up. And what I wanted to point out is that success is a system, not a secret. And if you're feeling fraudulent, that's normal. Here's some things that we can do to work through that and shift your belief to possibility. Because once we shift it to possibility, then those intuitive messages start coming in increasing numbers. So that's why I wrote the gratitude formula. It's sort of an advanced version of...
I think it's a wonderful context for our lives, period, to be grateful. And when I had the opportunity to just listen to your entire book at one time, and I don't think I've ever done that in a short period of time, it really gave me the opportunity to say, gosh, I'm doing a lot of this already. But the piece that's been missing for me has been putting it within the context of being grateful for everything. And I've got several pages in my journal that are about gratitude, but not having the context be gratitude, so that right off the bat it's thank you. Thanking the universe for everything that you desire in life, even before it happens, because it's really none of our business how it's going to happen.
It's not our job.
It's not our job.
There are roles and responsibilities that you and your spiritual partner, who I call a CSO, each of you have different jobs. Your job is to figure out what it is that you want. Describe it with gratitude as though it's already complete.
Right.
Your CSO creates the path for you to get there, the how, and gives you one step to take at a time. Now, you don't even know what goal is being worked on when you get an intuitive hit or a lead. You just know you either take the step or ask for another lead.
Good. And when you get what you think might be a lead, but you're still not clear on it, or there's some self-doubt around it, then you ask for another lead.
And a confirming lead.
A confirming lead.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a business meeting back in 1994, and I had this very strong thought, this thought that flew out of the blue about my sister. Well, it's kind of strange. I'm in a business meeting. But it came and it was strong, and so I knew, having practiced this a while, that meant I needed to contact her. So I happened to be close to her office, and I just stopped by, and she was so happy to see me because she had a computer problem that I could fix for free. So as I'm sitting there at her desk, she noticed this very tiny, tiny little dot on the outside of my right leg. And she asked me what it was. And you heard in the introduction that I was raised in Hawaii. And I have a lot of freckles because I'm fair. And so that's why I told her it was a freckle. She said she didn't feel that it was a freckle and asked that I see her dermatologist and have it looked at. And I've had this dot forever. It was nothing to be concerned about. I knew nothing had changed. It's so small. And I was just about to tell her, don't worry, and my gut hurt. And again, I knew that's one of the ways that the CSO guides me. So I just thought, well, why not? I'll just establish a relationship with a dermatologist. I should probably do that anyway. I'm getting older. So I made the appointment, and the doctor said it was nothing. It's too small. Couldn't possibly be anything to worry about. And I could go home. And I was just about to heed his advice, and my gut hurt again. So I had to have courage, like Steve Jobs said. I had to have courage to follow my intuition. So I said, doctor, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you need to cut that off. I came back a week later to a diagnosis of malignant melanoma cancer, Clark's level 3. Now, because it was caught so early, I didn't have to have any additional radiation or any treatment. I just had to have it cut a little bit further, some clean margins. But this stuff works for whatever your goal is, and my goal at that time was to be healthy, whole, and complete.
You know, the key here is to listen to your body. You know, I mean, because our bodies are always going to guide us in the right direction. That's the same thing as our intuition is going to display in how we feel in our bodies, as well as just a thought that we have that comes out of the blue, like you said. So it was your sister trusting that intuition, and then you feeling in your body. If you didn't have that feeling, you probably just would have, you know, ignored it. But I totally believe that spirit works through us in the feelings in our body.
I think it works through us, and I also think it works through other people, because we're all part of one. We're all part of this intelligent creation, and some external signs. You know, I remember I was very biased about the possibility of working with a very large corporation that wanted to resell our products. And I thought, gosh, you know, if they slow pay us, that could put me into a really bad cash flow state, and it might kill my business if I don't have the amount of money coming in that I need. And I was really quite scared about doing business with them. And then I thought, well, I'll just keep asking for leads.
Is this the San Diego one? Yeah.
So I kept asking for leads and leads and leads, and this company happened to be based in San Diego. And one day I'm driving across a bridge on my way to the office, and I see a billboard, and it says, "Your fortune will be made in San Diego." But of course, I may have driven by that billboard 100 times and never noticed it. But somehow it was illuminated that day for me to pay attention to. And my CSO has a great sense of humor, so
Yes.
I knew that was the lead for me that day.
That's great. That's great.
You know, I grew up, or somewhere along the way, I heard that if I in this case, if I had $100, I guess thinking back as a kid, then I could do something, and then the thing I would do, then I could be. So the have, do, be formula started. And of course, the numbers increased from $100 to $1,000 to $1 million, and then now it's $1 billion, you know, or
Yay.
let's just call it $1 zillion. But the question I have is that formula, of course, is backwards. So if I could have this, then I could do something, and then from the having and the doing, then I would be this person.
Yeah.
And would you talk about the reversal of that formula and how that works, where you have yourself being it first, and then the doing and the having comes later?
So remember, our job, our role in this relationship is to figure out what it is that we want, not the how to get there. So in the what, in the description of the what, I sometimes get people that will tell me, well, I don't really know what I want to do for work, or I don't really know what I want in a relationship. And so I ask them, and in the gratitude formula, I go through this, and I ask them to ask themselves some questions. If you already were in the perfect job, what would your life be like? How would you feel? How would you be treated? How would you treat other people? What kind of money would you be making? What skills and talents would you be using? So they start writing gratitude statements for those answers. If it's a right relationship, well, if you were in the perfect relationship, what's your life like? How easy is it to be in this relationship? How do you feel? Does your family like them? Do your friends like that person? You know, what's your life like with it already done? That's what you want to be grateful for. If it's a great job, you might say something like, I'm so grateful that I now use my skills and talents in remarkable and fulfilling and satisfying ways, and I work with people who I appreciate and value, and I feel so valued and appreciated by my coworkers and my company. I feel so supported to be able to serve our customers in remarkable and wonderful ways, and I am rewarded with a minimum or more of X number of dollars. I love my job. That doesn't say how you get there.
No.
You're just already there.
I call that pre-paving the future energetically for what you want to have happen, because our thoughts are energy. So you put that thought out, even though it's not happening in your life yet, you're setting it up energetically to happen, instead of worrying about how it's going to happen, or this is never going to happen, or I'm not good enough, or whatever kind of negative thinking we have around our purpose and not knowing what our purpose is. I work with my clients the same way, is what are the qualities, I call them essence qualities, what are the essence qualities that you would attribute to being fully self-expressed in your soul's work and your life's work? What are those qualities? And then I have them say, I'm fully self-expressed in my soul's work, imbued with the essence qualities of contribution, fulfillment, success, fun, abundance, travel, or whatever it is they desire. And they're setting it up, and then they just have to sit back and wait for it to come. And that's when the leads and following intuition.
And they still have to take action.
And still have to take inspired action.
yeah.
That's a part of it. That's the do.
That's the do. You got to do that part.
But you really need to be
Yes.
first, and then the do, and then the have comes. Be, do, have.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm involved, and I mentioned this when we were chatting before the show, in a mastermind program to become a professional speaker in the corporate world, but not just the corporate world, and in the world at large, because I really feel that it's time to bring the spiritual concepts into the business community.
Sure.
But without using the word spiritual, I'm using mindfulness, because mindfulness has its toe in the door. I'd love to get your perspective, given all the companies that you work with and all the clients that you have and the people that you are involved with, to your perspective on how you see consciousness and mindfulness already making its inroads into the corporate world.
Well, I think that we have some really large corporations who started bringing the idea of consciousness in business into the limelight. I mean, I love that book, Conscious Capitalism, that talks about the founder of Whole Foods and how we all need to have a goal that all stakeholders in your business, that would be your employees or coworkers, your suppliers and vendors, your customers, your community, your shareholders or investors, and your world, that everybody needs to be elevated in success along with your business. And you need to pay attention to make sure that all of the stakeholders are taken care of. And when I read that book, I just cracked up, because I'd been doing that in every business I ever had. I just didn't know what to call it. Now I have a term. It's called conscious business or conscious capitalism. So I think that more and more is being written, more and more is being demonstrated. But again, Whole Foods started as a small company and then grew. And it was the intention of the founders and the leaders to grow with this ideology, with this intention. Same in my companies. To go into a giant company and then try and shift things, it can sometimes be a little bit more difficult. But I think as people are changing jobs and moving into corporate America from some of the smaller companies, they're bringing that with them. And slowly but surely, it's starting to take effect. It's not as taboo to talk about conscious business and mindfulness and meditation, but you don't want to be talking about God.
Right.
And I think the reason that corporations are so, anti-talk about God is because everybody has a different belief.
Exactly.
And so why ruffle feathers?
Or a different name for whatever they feel is beyond the human experience.
Exactly. And so that's too small a word.
Right.
That makes this idea of an all-knowing universal creative power too small when we give it just one title.
Well, plus it's a highly charged word, and when people hear the word God, they think of their childhood or how they were raised around religion that perhaps wasn't for them. What I've found in my research is that companies like Aetna, for example, that blew my mind, that Aetna, I was raised in that Hartford area, and so Aetna was like a household word in the community. And in my research, I discovered that they have installed a mindfulness program with very hard quantifiable data, like 28% stress reduction and 20% better sleep and better relationships amongst employees. And not only that, they would give, you can practice mindfulness walking down the hall, you know, going to a meeting, presenting at a meeting, you know, working with your boss. You can practice mindfulness just by being present in the moment. It isn't that you have to sit on a meditation cushion chanting Om for a half an hour. And also, Meng Tan, who is the fellow that's called the Google's Jolly Good Fellow, he started the mindfulness program in Google. And that's been going on for a long time. And one of the things that stunned me is he said that corporations are going to be getting on the bandwagon, more and more corporations, because this is the way to go. And what he's discovering is that there aren't enough mindfulness trainers that need to be in these corporations.
Well, you should do that.
I know.
That should be your next project.
I would really love to do that. Yeah, I would.
Well, it wasn't very long ago that all of this was considered woo-woo.
Right.
There was no real traction anywhere. We weren't seeing how people were actually profiting from it. I mean, I saw the initial thing when I first did my first workshop 37 years ago. I saw it as a get-rich-quick scheme. Like, oh, if I became conscious, maybe I can make more money. Turns out that's true, but nevertheless, I mean, where I'm coming from with it, or just learning it, even talking to people about it over the years, was very, I don't know what the word for it is, but it seemed kind of dangerous, because it was woo-woo. What are you talking about? That's crazy stuff.
Right.
And it goes beyond so much, and now people are starting to see that it actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
But that's what I wrote about in my book, was like, here's where I practice this stuff, and here's what I learned from it.
Yeah.
Some things didn't work, some things did, but it's out of the woo-woo now.
Well, the cool part is that surveyors and data collectors and analysts are getting behind
Consciousness.
Well, they're figuring out ways to measure the benefit to the company.
Right.
You know, like I said earlier, my companies have always had a purpose, a why. My last two companies, the purpose was to save lives. That's why we existed, to save lives. But what we did was we created software and teamed it up with equipment to automate drug distribution processes in hospitals. But with all stakeholders behind the purpose to save lives, imagine for a moment how much more engaged employees are and excited they are about saving lives. And think about how more creative and innovative those software developers are to save lives, to make it easier for hospitals to save lives. The kinds of things that they came up with were just truly brilliant, much more so than if they were just doing an inventory management and distribution software platform. And I'm not the only one that believes that. They actually, Ernst & Young actually did a study, they funded a study that was published in 2015 in the Harvard Business Review. And this is back to my point that people are actually gathering data and studying it. And what they did was they surveyed almost 500 major corporate CEOs. And what they learned is that those corporations that had clearly defined purpose statements, the why that their company exists, which is very different than what they do, and were able to carefully articulate it to all stakeholders so that they would be on board and engaged, we're more profitable. So purpose really does lead to more profits.
Go figure.
Yeah. You know, speaking of the Harvard Business Review, part of my research included the work of Ellen Langer. Do you know who she is? She has studied mindfulness for the past 40 years. And what she says is that there is no outcome in all of her years of studying this in relationship to business that has not been improved as a result of mindfulness. Not one.
Okay.
You know, and
Wow.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
It is.
Yeah. Good.
Question that comes to mind is, there's got to be a lot of assumptions out there. What is your favorite assumption to challenge that people have? We just assume something, and is there one there that comes to mind that you hear a lot that just, come on, you know?
If I build it, they will come.
Okay. I'll go with that.
That's a good assumption.
That only works with
hear
Kevin
that-
Costner
I
in
hear
a
that a
baseball
lot.
field.
I don't think so.
No, a lot of, at least in business, and I spend a lot of time in business. I also speak at a lot of different spiritual organizations and am hired for corporate work and retreats and association meetings and things like that. And it kind of depends on what the industry is and what's going on. There are lots and lots and lots of assumptions, but what I can tell you is that when people start to assume something, usually what they're doing is future tripping. They're thinking about and putting their intention on what is happening that they don't really have any facts for. They're assuming, they're guessing, with a bigger word, assuming.
The second agreement,
And,
don't assume.
and what I find is that whatever you start to assume, whatever you start to focus on that's not absolutely proven today, you are going to attract. And lots of people have gotten themselves in trouble because of assuming. So my position on that is don't assume, find out what's going on. I mean, I write in the gratitude formula, I write about in the Path to Wealth, I write about a guy named Sam who was an employee and he got fired. And leading up to him getting fired, he was assuming that this boss didn't like him. And he was constantly talking about it and thinking about it and scared about it. And consequently, that which he feared came upon him. And he got fired. And then I met him, and of course I told him the good news was that he proved how powerful he is.
Right.
And he could just declare a different outcome now. And he did. And got in an even better position.
Well, don't make Ruiz in the second agreement. I think it's don't assume.
Don't assume. And don't take things
Don't
personally.
make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Don't
Uh-huh.
take anything personally.
Be impeccable with your word and
Don't
do
take
the best.
Don't
and
take anything personally.
Yeah, and do the best you can.
And do the best you can.
Yeah,
The
love that
fifth
book.
agreement
And
is be
the
skeptical.
fifth agreement is be skeptical. I love that, to be skeptical, even of your own thinking. Yeah.
Well,
Powerful
you
word.
say the word assume, and I hear when somebody tells me something, sounds like a fact, sounds believable. The question that comes to mind is, how do you know that? And some people, I don't know, it just seems like a good idea. And some people say, I read it in a book. The answer I really want to hear is, I did it, and that was my experience with it. And then I have a sense, okay, this might actually make sense. But it's amazing to me how often people really can't answer that question with a real fact.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, we are assuming something now.
Well, we all come to this stage in our life with a whole bunch of beliefs and behaviors that have been created over a lifetime.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with the next question. So please, beliefs. Beliefs are so incredibly important for us to understand,
Yeah.
and how they sabotage our success.
Well, they can help or hinder us.
Right.
I mean, one of the people that I think was incredible in shifting beliefs was Muhammad Ali. What he said was that repetition of affirmations ends up shifting beliefs. And once the belief shifts into possibility, then everything begins to shift. And I've proved that myself, and I know lots and lots of people that have proved that as well. And there's something interesting. I love how science is coming along with this revealing, with this awakening, because what they've determined is that we have neural pathways in our brains, and those that are associated with very strong beliefs and behaviors are very thick, very strong. They're almost like grooves, mind grooves. And those neural pathways are the strong beliefs and behaviors that we have. This is just the way it is. This is the way I believe. This is how it goes. And the good news about that is that we can do some things to shift our beliefs and strengthen a different neural pathway.
Exactly.
It's kind of like thinking about it this way. If you went to a field of grass and you saw grass up to your hips, it's this whole field, and you walk through that field one day, and you come back the next, chances are you can't see where you walked. But if you walk that same path every single day, you'll start to notice the path. It'll become so familiar to you. And you'll even create a little bit of a groove, right?
Exactly.
That's what we do using repetition and making what we want familiar and welcome. We create a stronger neural pathway that's more in alignment with what we do want. And this one, because we're starving it, starts to shrink. This old belief starts to shrink and this new one takes its place. So in the gratitude formula, I show people how they can go through that to shift their beliefs. Once their belief shifts, once the brain stops trying to protect them from the unknown, it will take those intuitive messages off mute and you'll be able to see directions more clearly.
And it's important as you're working with the repetition, the repetitious affirmations, that your belief system will definitely shift. I mean, some people say, well, you can create intentions or affirmations and not believe them and still have them work. And I think in time, if you really believe the possibility is there, that it will happen.
Well, belief has to shift. And also patience. I mean, that's one of the things that are in the 7 steps of the gratitude formula is patience, because everybody's already proved how powerful they are in using a system for success. They learn to read. They learn to ride a bike. They learn to type on that crazy keyboard that's not even in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
They learn to drive a car. And now I would venture to believe that when I ask people if they drive home from work every day, and many people will say yes, I said, do you always 100% of the time remember every single bit of your drive home? And all of them will say, nope,
Yeah.
I was on autopilot for a good portion of that. That's because they've mastered that skill.
It's a subconscious thing.
It's repetition that's helped them, but it's also the belief that they could do it. And the way that they shifted that belief into possibility is they made what they wanted familiar and welcome. They saw their older siblings and their parents driving a car. They had some friends that were slightly older than them who got their license and could drive a car. They already started to believe, wow, if they could do it, I could do it.
You know, this interview has just flown by. We're coming to the end of it now. And so I have one last question, and I ask you to be very succinct. If you had a pearl of wisdom to leave our viewers, our audience, what would that be? And you can look right into that camera over there.
Success is a system, and you are powerful enough to use a system to achieve whatever your definition of success is. And you know what, as one of my very favorite authors and very favorite teachers from the 1800s, her name is Emma Curtis Hopkins. She said that there is a good for you and you ought to have it, and I would add that you should have it now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have you here today as our guest. So stay with us. We have a little bit more to share with our audience. And now it's time for
Name that too.
Burke's Brainstorm, or Burke's Big Ideas.
Call it that. Yeah,
Not
okay.
Stu's Views, but Burke's Big Ideas or Burke's Brainstorm. So please share with us your thoughts about today and what you want.
Yeah, I do have some ideas that come to mind. You know, we talk about, you've talked about it, I haven't talked about it at all, but the part about the gratitude. Your books are about gratitude, your statements are about gratitude, and gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And part of that, I wonder, why is it that we need to be reminded so much to be grateful? Like, why aren't we just naturally grateful? And then I think about all of the advertising messages that we get every single day, all day long. What is it, 5,000 messages a day, 7,000 messages a day that say, you're not okay. If you buy this thing from me, and they'll point at you, even like a car salesman, if you're not okay, but you'll be okay if you buy my thing. So there's not one ad, except the one, I guess, that says you're going to make your fortune in San Diego. But most of the ads I see tell me that, if I bought this thing, then I'll be all right. But I'm not okay now. And so it's easy to forget to be gracious, thankful for the things that I do have. And then I also find that I need to be grateful for a lot of things that I already have, because I always want more. Because that comes back to being a child. I want the next thing. I want a bigger thing. It's got to be bigger and better. And I want to buy the thing they're advertising. And then, there's the bright, shiny objects all over the place. I want a shiny object. So I want one of those. And I forget about the bright, shiny object I got last week, or all the bright, shiny objects I already have, or what I have already going for me. And I heard somebody say, when you wake up in the morning, you have, open your eyes and you get 2 gifts right off the bat. So you have those. And I think about all the simple things and even the complicated things that I have in my life to be grateful for. And I often forget. And I often go into, I want the next thing, and I write my goals. I want this, I want this, I want that. And now I've got to change to be grateful for the thing that I have.
Right.
And that is a dramatic distinction to me about how I think and look at everything, because I look at my life and who I am and what I got and all that, and I know there's plenty of people who probably happily change places with me in a heartbeat for, like my deal. And so thank you. I'm grateful for my situation and who I am and what I have, and thank you for being here, for this opportunity. So those things really, that's what really struck me as the big deal, the big brainstorm, so to speak, from this conversation that I really appreciate.
Gratitude.
So yeah, and just to really be appreciative constantly and express it constantly. And it's something that I haven't done, but I can do. And it's easy, it's free, it's easy to do. And so that's really the main thing I'd want to say about that. And so let's go back to you. You've got quantum quotes. Let's hear those. Let's hear a quantum
yes,
quote.
to wrap up our show. This is one of my favorite segments of the show because I get a chance to Google and do research on wonderful quotes in relationship to whatever the topic is. And of course, I Googled spirituality and money, and I had a wonderful time, and I printed out a whole bunch of stuff. But there's always one that I can feel in my body that is the right one. And here it is. It's from the Abraham Hicks work, and for those of you that have been in the spiritual conversation for a while, know Esther Hicks, who is a channel for a group of beings, ascended masters they call themselves, who come through her to really help us to embrace our power of manifestation and be successful manifestors. So this is what they say. Here's their message. When you are thinking of money in a way that it will come to you, you'll always feel good. When you are thinking of money in a way that keeps it from coming to you, you will always feel bad. That's how you know the difference. So the bottom line here is quite simple. When you have a negative thought, that negative thought is going to trigger a negative feeling in your body, and that negative feeling in your body, connected in conjunction with the thought, is going to cause what you're thinking about to happen, quite simply. All right? And the converse is also true. When you have a positive thought, and it'll generate a positive feeling in your body, and the outcome of that thought and that feeling will be positive. For example, let's look at the negative. I always worry about money. I never have enough money. Money always escapes me. There's never enough money at the end of the month for my month. That is a negative thought, and if it's a habituated thought, then you're really in trouble. And when you have that thought, what is the feeling in your solar plexus or wherever it's going to be in your body is going to create that negative experience. And if you turn it around to a positive thought, I am now open to receive the abundance of the universe. Thank you, CSO. Thank you, universe. Thank you, Spirit, Creator, for all the abundance in my life and for having it come to me with grace and ease. So what are the guys actually telling us? They're telling us that wherever we're vibrating at frequency-wise is really what we're attracting into our lives. The universe will always respond to our vibration. All right? It's just simply a matter of fact. And science has proven this over and over and over again, that our words, our thoughts, and our feelings are components of creation. They're all vibration. Everything is vibration. So really, vibration is the bottom line. So pay attention to what you're thinking. And if you have a negative thought, change it. And even if it doesn't seem like you don't know how, you have no idea how it's going to happen, don't worry about the how. Don't fall into what I call the how hole. The universe will take care of the details, and we've talked about that tonight. So pay attention to what you're thinking, become a deliberate creator of your reality, and think big. So that's our show for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, our wonderful audience for being here. And May McCarthy, it's been just delightful to have you here. You're just a wonderful guest.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we're going to close, and we didn't tell you this, but we're going to close with our traditional little closure, which is, until next time, get conscious now. All right? Until next time.
Until next time.
Let's say it together.
Until next time, get conscious now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Ray of Thrive Beauty Services. I provide transformational beauty services in salon, at home, on site, and at your convenience. I'm proud to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
My name is Greg Relow. I'm a local attorney and mediator. I am pleased to be associated with Get Conscious Now. I find the show inspiring. I hope you enjoy the show. Please contact me for help on all your legal matters. I look forward to it.